Telecameras 3 and 4 working. Activate radio contact with the outside.
Love, wisdom, abundant life. Live a life filled with meaning, purpose, and a sense of accomplishment.
Can you hear me?
Welcome to the Teachings of Enoch. I'm your host, James Allen. Listen every week at this time on KKVV AM 1060 Las Vegas. You can listen online at kkvv.com, on your smartphone using the TuneIn radio app, or listen anytime at teachingsofenoch.com. You can contact me by sending a text message to 702-483-7769. That's 702-483-7769. Or online at teachingsofenoch.com. Let's get started with today's message. Have you ever seen a ghost? The other day I was watching cartoons with my son, and we were watching Scooby-Doo. You know, it reminded me of when I was a kid and watched cartoons and watched the same show as a kid. The plot is simple. It's usually always the same. The cast of characters end up in some creepy place and see some sort of ghost or monster. Most of the time, they discover that the ghost or monster isn't even real. It's someone dressed up in a suit to scare people away. The ghost is really someone trying to hide, to conceal, protect, or maybe even get something, like someone's property, their estate, or an inheritance. They use the ghost or the monster disguise to scare people off. In the end, the ghost really is shown to be quite harmless. If you flip through the so-called reality shows on television, you'll find a number of ghost chaser shows. Shows where the actors supposedly go out to some haunted location to find a ghost and try and get rid of it. You know, to me, these shows are about as real as Scooby-Doo. But there is another kind of ghost that is real and can and will haunt us. It's the ghost of our past. I was looking up the definition of ghost in the dictionary the other day, and one of the definitions is a haunting memory and a mere shadow. Have you ever seen someone that you haven't seen in a long time, and it brought back memories of the past? Not too long ago, I was at an event along with thousands of other people. And in the midst of the thousands of people in the crowd, one man stood out. I saw a man I hadn't seen in years, and when I saw him, it seemed so surreal because he stood out above everyone else. I watched him for a few minutes, and as quickly as he appeared out of the crowd, he disappeared back into the crowd. Seeing him was like seeing a ghost. It brought back memories of a time in my life when things were a lot different for me. I started thinking about those times, and I just couldn't get them out of my head. They were times, quite frankly, that I would rather not remember. I'm sure the same things happened to you. Maybe an old girlfriend, old boyfriend, perhaps an old coworker, or just someone you used to hang around with. It was a time in your life when you weren't living the kind of life that you were called to live. And it can be hard to shake off those old memories. I love the words of Apostle Paul as he writes to the young church in Philippi. He says, I do not mean that I am already as God wants me to be. I have not yet reached that goal, but I continue trying to reach it and make it mine. Christ wants me to do that, which is the reason he made me his. Brothers and sisters, I know that I have not reached that goal, but there is one thing I will always do. Forgetting the past and straining toward what is ahead, I keep trying to reach the goal and get the prize for which God called me through Christ to the life above. Sometimes some ghosts of our past need some work to get rid of. They can keep coming back to remind us of some time that we would rather forget. Psychologists and positive thinkers give various formulas on dealing with the ghosts of our past, but for me, focusing on the future, striving to reach my goals that God has stirred up within me, and forgetting the past and straining toward what is ahead is the perfect approach. That doesn't mean that you and I simply block out the past, but it means that we acknowledge events and relationships in our past, but we don't dwell on them. We learn from them. Well, at least we hope we do. And we refuse to let them spiritually and emotionally cripple us. With the different social media available to us today, It's tempting to want to search and add someone from our past. Don't get me wrong, social media is great for finding people who we just lost touch with, or we want to network with somebody and make that connection with them. But it can also tempt us to add people to our friends list that we should probably just leave alone. Destructive or hurtful relationships of the past, people that can lead us in the wrong direction instead of helping us to focus on our calling, should be left alone. It doesn't make any sense to bring those kind of ghosts and relationships back into our life. At some point in time, you made the decision to break away from the people who weren't the best influences in your life. Why go back? Many years ago, I was involved in the typical American lifestyle of sex, drugs, rock and roll. I guess today they'd call it sex, drugs, and electronic music, or hip hop. One particular person that I hung out with sold pot. A lot of pot. He talked me into selling pot as well. You know, the appeal of selling marijuana for me was that the money was easy, and I was able to buy the things I wanted and have lots of friends. Who could argue with that? But after I became a Christian, the Lord spoke to my heart about my occupation. I knew that I needed to give up my lifestyle, stop selling marijuana, and break away from the people I had been hanging around. My eyes began to open not only to the illegal part of what I was involved in, but also to the physical and spiritual dangers. One particular time, and I can recall this as clearly as if it happened this afternoon, my drug source and some of his partners, along with myself, were sitting around talking when all of a sudden I noticed that everyone present, except me, was carrying a concealed gun. It was as if a single beam of light just hit me between the eyes and penetrated down into my soul. I saw everything so clearly. I saw the danger I was in. I could see into the future of what my life could be if I continued along in this lifestyle. I had this image of me driving down the highway with this big load of pot and a gun tucked inside my belt. I saw my future of running from the law, getting shot, or ending up in jail. After I left that group of people, I never went back to see any of those people again. A few months later, I was walking downtown and one of these acquaintances pulled up and we started talking. He wanted to know how I'd been and why I hadn't been hanging around. Then he told me he'd gotten a big shipment in and wanted to know if I was interested in buying some. In my mind, I kept thinking, I have got to get out of here. It was like some ghost of the past was trying to bring me back and destroy my life. I kept the conversation brief. I told him I wasn't interested, and we went our separate ways. I never saw him again. A few weeks after that encounter, I heard that the police had arrested him. Sometimes we go back to our past foolishness and we embrace those who are destructive to our calling in life. Why? Why do we do that? I think there's a couple of reasons. One, it's easy. Sometimes it's hard to find new friends. It can be lonely leaving any relationship, even if it's not in our best interests. But use these times of aloneness to build up your spiritual character, and use that time to refocus on your calling and your life's passion. Instead of hanging out in the old haunts, find new places and pursue pursuits that matter to your heart. You'll find that you'll be blessed with people that care about you and share your interest. Replace those old habits and relationships with ones that build up your character. It's not always easy, but really it is the only way. David writes in the Psalms, "Blessed be the Lord, who daily loads us up with his benefits, the God of our salvation." Yes, it's a daily struggle, but we have a God who is able to give us his strength to overcome.
See, nothing matters, and nobody understands until you
Another reason why we don't leave the past behind is it's comfortable. There is a reason why we were involved in the relationships of our past. We enjoyed them. It doesn't make any sense, but people do all kinds of things to hurt themselves and enjoy doing it. But you can't have it both ways. You can't. You can't live the life God called you to become and continue to hurt yourself with destructive and unhealthy relationships. Solomon writes in the book of Proverbs, "My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent." Another self-deception we place on ourselves is you think you could be a good influence. While this is a tempting idea, in reality, it seldom works. We think that we are much stronger than we actually are. Again, forget the past. Strain yourself to achieve the calling that you were meant for. Surround yourself with people that bring you up, not down. There are a couple of things I've discovered to help me overcome the ghosts of my life. Once we break away from hurtful and damaging relationships, they will come back to haunt us from time to time. They will test us and tempt us. Consider these words from Apostle James as he writes to the churches. "My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing." And he continues, "Blessed is the man who endures temptation, for when he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life which the Lord has promised to those who love him." Be extremely focused on who you are now and who you want to become. The past relationships are a thing of the past. They are done and gone. Yes, you may be reminded of them from time to time. The people from your past will appear in your life, but they are in the past. Like David tells us in the Psalm, "I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand. I shall not be moved." Also, keep in mind why you left the relationships in the first place. You and I have been called to great things, whether it's raising a family, building a business, helping others, being involved in a ministry. Don't ever let the relationships of the past cloud your vision of what your purpose in life is all about. And finally, understand that emotions play a huge part in our memories. There is nothing wrong with emotions. God gave them to us. But they have their place. They can trick and deceive us. They are certainly never, ever a reliable way to make decisions. And I can guarantee that every decision you make based solely on emotions, you will regret. Think. Use your God-given mind and pray. Ask God to give you wisdom and understanding.
What's going on? What are they stopping for?
Love, wisdom, abundant life. That's my hope for you. You've been listening to The Teachings of Enoch. I'm James Allen, your host. You can contact me by sending a text message to 702-483-7769. That's 702-483-7769. Or online at teachingsofenoch.com. You can listen to this program every week at the same time on KKVV AM 1060 Las Vegas. You can listen online at kkvv.com on your smartphone using the TuneIn radio app, or listen anytime at teachingsofenoch.com.